Good morning, everyone. 2020 has been a big year in politics, in health, and yes, also in food. COVID-19 and the long overdue racial reckoning our country is going through have both raised awareness of some inequity in the food system, but also in the importance of addressing it. At the same time, post-COVID, consumers are really zeroing in on the fact that food across the spectrum ties to our health, our well-being, and immunity. These next 18 months, I believe, will be critical for our issues. The World Economic Forum and the United Nations are both highlighting food in a big way as a tool to address hunger, food waste, health, and climate. We at PHA are seeing renewed interest from companies all across the country in search of better food for more people, particularly in disadvantaged communities. And food retailers have real power in this conversation. We have seen grocery sector revenue rise by as much as 10% year over year as consumers appreciate the role grocers play in our society. Meanwhile, restaurant sales have declined by more than 70% in some urban areas, so the balance of power is shifting. And at PHA, we see real potential for retail to help consumers move even further, even faster toward food choices that will be delicious and fun, of course, but will also support their health and immunity. So today I've got three terrific folks with me. Hank Cardello is the author of the report we're releasing today on shifts in consumer trends post-COVID, which you can download at our website, ahealthieramerica.org. Hank is a former food executive who shifted gears mid-career to really work on helping food companies and associations think through ways to find better for you solutions that are profitable. Gordon Reed is with us. He's the president of Stop and Shop, and Gordon is a longtime champion in driving the companies he leads toward more and better food for consumers. Gordon, thank you. And Leslie Saracen, the president and CEO of FMI, the Food Industry Association that works with and on behalf of the entire industry to advance safer, healthier, and a more efficient food supply chain. Welcome to all three of you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation in a moment, and I do want to let our viewers know that you will have an opportunity at the end to pose your own questions. So you can type them in at the bottom of your screen. But I'd like to begin with Hank. Why don't you hit the high points of our report, and then we'll open it up to a conversation.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and good morning, everyone. Pleased to be here. So much has happened in the food industry this year, it's almost impossible to know where to start. However, there are certain trends that clearly were happening before the pandemic that are now actually continuing their movement and in some cases accelerating. And what I'd just like to do now as an overview to our discussion today is just to go over some of the key trends we're finding and then go through the opportunities from a retailer perspective. So if I can start with four key trends that we are seeing and have been seeing, sugar intake being reduced is a biggie. You have the World Health Organization, now the dietary guidelines reducing the amount of sugar that is deemed acceptable. And of course, regulations are now accelerating. Sustainably marketed products are those where there is a benefit to a product that either where it's sourced or how it's handled. And we're seeing that even though they're a small portion of the market, they're really accounting for quite a bit of growth. And then plant-based products have gotten a lot of news this year, particularly on the plant-based meat side, where we've seen some of the meat plants have curtailed their production capability and provided some opportunities here. And it's not only that short-term issue, but also we're looking at long-term consumer trends that are continuing. And finally, what we're seeing with COVID and the impact of COVID on linked to food and to diet, people want to be healthier. And the notion of immune support in their foods and beverages above and beyond supplements is now here with us. So let me just base on these 4 key trends and move into our key opportunities that we're seeing for retailers coming out of this year in particular. First of all, retailers and CPG companies too have an opportunity to spend more encouraging family meals where consumers will eat more healthy instead of just all day long snacking, and whole real foods. This is no longer a nice to do. Several years ago, it was an either or. Today, now it's something totally different. And by ignoring this, you ignore growth opportunities and also where the consumer is going to. The second key opportunity is displaying, promoting, getting behind traditionally healthy foods, along with the high volume items, that you're used to promoting. It's not an either or world. I think that's permeated our thinking over the past few years. And again, there's been a lot of concern about getting behind healthier products, lower calorie products. But the point is they're no longer niche anymore. They're now heavily moved into the mainstream. And especially when you look at millennials and Gen Z, there's a lot of push behind these kind of products. The third opportunity we see is to call out feature foods that are both good for the planet and good for human health, especially when you dive into, I mentioned millennials a moment ago. Millennials are really telling us that they want both. It's not food. They don't just see food in its own isolated microcosm. Food, taking care of the planet, being sustainable, all those things together now are key aspects that go into the consideration to purchase foods in that arena. And then fourth, we go back to low, no, reduced sugar. This is a major hot button. Again, I mentioned the WHO and the dietary guidelines. If you look at what's happening, not only here, but around the world, this is a hot button. It is the #1 issue for the World Health Organization. You now have added sugars on labels. Consumers are paying more and more attention to this. Now, the key is these products have to taste good. So I think that's an important aspect of them. Otherwise, they won't sell. But there are more technologies that some of the sugar replacement companies and sweetener companies have beaten that barrier, and you'll see more and more products coming along this arena. The fifth point was increasing distribution and in-store visibility of plant-based foods, and again, also marketing them as sustainable. 1 in 5 Americans now identify themselves as being flexitarian. In other words, we're not talking about vegan here. We're talking about those who want to consume less animal-based products. And that's a driving trend, and that number's increased. So when you say 1 in 5 of your customers care about this, that's an important aspect. Again, it's no longer a fringe area. It's definitely moved into the mainstream. And finally, we can't deny that we all enjoy our comfort foods and sweet snacks, baked goods, products like that. And we shouldn't. And in fact, what we've seen is a bifurcation of consumption this year, where there's a lot of comfort food consumption and also people eating healthier. But there is an opportunity to sell these products in smaller portions. And we think, and that trend towards smaller sizes, again, is picking up. And we see that as an opportunity, again, to enjoy these products, but in a way that helps consumers move to more healthy eating. So at that point, that provides an overview. And Nancy, I'll turn it back to you for the panel.
All right, thank you, Hank. I'm resisting temptation to dive into about 4 of those points because I'd really like to go right away to you, Leslie, and just get your react to anything maybe that Hank laid out, but very specifically, just what are your own observations about, what the consumer's doing post-COVID and how they're thinking about health? Oops, you're on mute.
You would think by now I'd know how to do this. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's always a pleasure to join Hank and Gordon in any conversation, but particularly one that I think all three of us feel so passionately about. And of course, we are very much watching closely what consumer behaviors are, and also at FMI working closely with our retailers and our product supplier members to better understand what they're being motivated by and the types of decisions they're making and how to address the health and wellness needs of their customers. And so what we've seen in this COVID environment throughout the food industry is a much greater emphasis on health and well-being. Hank referenced this, and I think it's an important point to be made that our customers view this as an important part of what they are doing during this unusual period that we're all enduring. And our retailers are responding in kind and working closely with them. Not only are they working closely with their customers on these types of issues, but also I think it's important to acknowledge that they're working closely with their associates, the individuals who actually work in their companies. And so I think as a collective, this is becoming a much higher priority. As you all know, we at FMI do an annual survey that we call our U.S. Grocery Shopper Trends Research. And in our 2020 research, what we've learned is that shoppers consistently identified the grocery store as an ally in their health and well-being journey. That has been historically the case, but at numbers that were nothing like as high as they have been in 2020. So during COVID-19, what we're seeing is much greater emphasis on this trend, with 62% of shoppers saying that their primary store is on their side when it comes to helping them with their health and well-being efforts. And that number is up from 51% pre-COVID. So I think what we see is that retailers are moving in this direction as their customers do. And to the points that Hank talked about in his presentation, I think we'll see more and more of this as we move forward and even post-pandemic.
Interesting. So, retailers are already doing quite a bit. And of course, it's a trend. And so we'll expect that to continue. But what do you see for grocery stores? If you were going to listen to the list that Hank rattled off, where do you think are the opportunities to move further faster? I mean, retailers already have many of these priorities set, but if you were saying like post-COVID in this area, I think we can move faster towards.
It's interesting. I think there are some areas where we will see faster movement, and it really comes down to the retailers becoming a more holistic resource for health and well-being for their customers. What we know is that about 90% of food retailers have made it clear that they have some sort of program in place for health and well-being for their customers and their employees. As I mentioned earlier, I think our customers will continue to take full advantage of the spectrum of services that are being offered in the retail environment. And I think there will be even more of them. As we were talking earlier about the COVID vaccine, our retailers that have pharmacies in them are going to be front and center in working on making that vaccine available to their customers when it is actually out into the marketplace. And I think our retailers will become even more of the go-to places for their health and well-being strategies. We have pharmacists, we have registered dietitians, we have nurses, and many of those are actually in the stores, not just at the corporate levels. So I think we're going to see much more focus on health and well-being for the foreseeable future during this COVID environment, but post environment as well.
Yeah, I'm personally hopeful that with more of the traditional health services like vaccinations and checkups moving into the place of food acquisition, that it underscores and highlights the fact that food is really the primary tool, for building health. And that ties to the next question I want to ask you, Leslie, before I move on to Gordon. We know people are cooking at home, whether they want to or not in these days. And I know FMI has really worked on helping people cook at home, because you're always up against cost and time. Those are the barriers. People want it to be inexpensive and fast. So tell me a little bit about, the opportunities you see to help people out where they may be sort of tired of cooking at home.
Well, I think, it's interesting because prior to the pandemic, about 5 years ago at FMI, through our foundation, we created a program we call National Family Meals Month. And it was dedicated to the month of September in encouraging people to add one more family meal each week that they have at home together. And never in our wildest imagination did we think we would end up in a situation where we might occasionally be hoping for a meal that we weren't having with our families, which I think is where some of us may find ourselves these days. But certainly we know a lot about the benefits of family meals at home. From a health perspective, we know that we tend to eat more fruits and vegetables when we eat at home. We tend to consume fewer calories when we eat at home. And then, of course, there's just the social aspects of what it does for kids to eat at home as part of their families. And then the functioning of the family of being at home together more frequently. So this is something that we've invested a lot of time and resources in. And I think we will continue to see retailers focus on this for all of the reasons I've just stated. But also, I think during this pandemic, we've learned that, it's kind of fun to be at home cooking together. And maybe we don't want to do it quite as frequently as we are being forced to do it these days. But, we're sort of being reminded of the cooking skills that some of us had before our lives became so crazy busy that we didn't do much cooking. And for those who hadn't cooked before, it's been a good opportunity to learn how to do some of these things. So I think from a health perspective and a convenience perspective, you will see retailers really meeting that need in ways that they have done to date to some degree, but even more so going forward. For those of it, when we get back into a more, whatever our new normal existence is going to be, where we're actually going to work and commuting and that kind of thing, I think you'll see more and more food service options available in retailers. A number of them have been working on prepared foods that can simply be taken home and heated up, or prepared foods that can be taken home and cooked. And, for those of us who are moms, but working full time, if I stick something in the oven, I have prepared it from my perspective. And I think most of us feel that way, even though I may not have done every single step in the process. But it just makes me feel better to know that I've had some involvement in the process. And I think that's what retailers will be focusing on, is how to make us all feel better about what we're doing for our families, and making it both convenient and readily available to us and importantly, at a price point we can afford.
Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. So Gordon, you were a real leader at Giant, and now you're taking the helm of Stop and Shop. And your company, decided to really incentivize and showcase healthy sales. And I was wondering if you could sort of talk me through your thinking on that, why the company decided to do that.
Yeah, no, I think good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me with you today. No, at Stop and Shop, we've made a commitment to a pledge to increase the sales of healthy foods in our business, and a pledge to transparency, because we believe as a retailer that we have responsibility for people eating healthy and helping support them do that. So beginning next year, our parent company, Ahold Delhaize, and all its brands are going to start disclosing the percentage of sales that are healthy of our own brand. And healthy means that they'll actually have at least 1 star in our guiding stars system, which our guiding stars is a very simple 1, 2, and 3 star award that products get if they're healthy, deemed as healthy, and that goes through a whole panel who look at each of the products and their formulation. And by 2025, the objective is that we'll have 54% of our own brand sales will be on healthy products. And over the coming months and years, we'll sort of look at making sure that in store people can find those really easily. Because again, you know, a lot of people don't understand the nutrition labels, they can be quite complicated. And we're making a system that's really easy for people to pick up healthier products. And you know, if you're looking for a yogurt, why not choose a healthy one versus something that doesn't have a star on it? And we'll be constantly reformulating our products to do that. So really, yeah, that's where we are. So I think, you know, as I say, for me, a retailer has the responsibility, I think, to help people eat in a much more healthy way. And our Guiding Stars commitment with PHA is going to help us do that.
Yeah, you know, I do agree. Transparency for the consumer, that's one big way to help, because, you know, when you're going through the grocery store, you're on the fly, and sometimes it's not at all clear to the naked eye, you know, which yogurt is high in sugar versus low in sugar. And I do see that as a future trend, and certainly something that PHA will be working on, is helping retailers help the consumer see. So when they want to make those better choices, they can. I just wanted to ask you, Gordon, you know, this isn't the only thing that you've been part of. You've been part of many, many, many efforts around health and well-being. And I'm wondering, of the many strategies you've tried in your retail career, which are some of the ones that you thought have been most effective?
There's effective, and then there's really satisfying, I think, as well, as part of being involved in this. And certainly, as we've started to at Stop and Shop, we're on a remodel program over the next coming years, and we really are learning how to actually offer customers and help them find those products. So things like prepared foods that Leslie mentioned, you know, if you put it in the oven yourself and heat it up, that counts as cooking it, I think. So our whole prepared foods strategy is something that we're working really hard on introducing in all of our stores. We also are sort of looking at natural products, as Hank mentioned. You know, some of these products used to be a niche and on the side, and we're integrating all of our natural products into the normal aisles. So if you have soup, you'll have soup that's, you know, the brands that we all know and love, and you'll have the healthier organic options in there as well, so it's easier to find. And I think one of the big things for me I've enjoyed has been some of the work that's been done in some of our disadvantaged communities that we work in. And I think, you know, in the report that, you know, Hank mentioned about COVID having impacted, you know, people with diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease. And I think in some of these disadvantaged communities that retailers can play a real role in moving the community forward and supporting the community, you know, through nutritionists, through our pharmacists that we have in stores, and really committing to helping people become healthy. And I think that's where, you know, the combination of the ranges and the products that we offer, the Guiding Stars, making it easy for people to choose, discontinuing products that really aren't sort of healthy in any way whatsoever, but still giving people the choice that they can sort of make individual choices. But then how do we give them information to make those choices? During the COVID pandemic, we started a nutrition program online, which works each week and has had a large sign up, which has been great. And also we had fun with Robert Irvin, the chef Robert Irvin, who on Facebook at the start of COVID did a sort of a 3-part series on cooking at home and how you can make fun, quick meals together. And again, that resonated with our customers. One of the first episode had over 1 million people viewing. So there's a real desire to understand and eat more healthy. And I think retailers have a responsibility and a great opportunity to help people make healthy choices.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Gordon. You said something there that actually caught me by surprise, but it made me happy. About one of the things being discontinuing carrying things that don't have, any, nutritional density or however you worded it of any kind. Is that something you're actually doing, is looking at products and just taking them completely out of circulation?
Yes, we've done that in sort of some of the trials that we've done, and we've also at the same time promoted other healthier products at a better price point, so people it's easier for them to make the change over to a better product. And so some of the juices that you get, so these diluting juices that are used in different places are just pure sugar and no nutritional value. So things like our water, just promotions that have done, getting people to make better choices. And bringing in, you and I have discussed previously, working with some organizations who really do the data analytics to help understand how you can get people to change over to healthier products, and through pricing or just through promotional opportunities. So there's a whole world out there, I think, that we haven't really tapped into yet, that we can really help people make better choices by doing the right things as retailers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree. I think one of the interesting things about food being so front and center at this moment in time is we've got all these disruptions. COVID caused disruptions in technology, disruptions in delivery, and I believe always disruption sets up new opportunity for innovation. And so really, PHA has been calling on entrepreneurs to step up and sort of enter the fray and do things maybe we can't even think about. Data analytics certainly holds potential to market, better for you products.
Absolutely.
So, Hank, I want to come to you and get back to the report a little bit. In some of the things you've highlighted, and I'd love to delve down into every one, but we already have questions rolling in from the audience, and I want to make sure to leave time for those. But, we talked about, for example, let's take sugar, that people, aren't as interested in consuming sugar right now. So we're calling that a trend. Is that a fad or is that a long-term trend? I mean, what do you say?
I definitely see that as a long-term trend. I mean, first of all, it's on labels now. Added sugars are on labels. And as both Leslie and Gordon alluded to, I mean, consumers are paying more attention to these factors. It's not all consumers, but we're seeing that when you break down consumers by segments, it's clear that over half the consumers are now looking for sugar in particular, regarding the sugar content in products. You also have other pressures that are coming that will affect the consumer. There's a regulatory tsunami starting to form. It started overseas in Latin America with black stop sign labels going on products that are high in sugar or calories or saturated fats. In the UK now, they've banned, quote, junk foods in the broadest context at checkout lanes and advertising to children after 9 o'clock. And just recently in Berkeley, California, they also passed a ban on products which also, containing high sugar and other, quote, junk foods, as they call it. I don't like the term, but that's the way they call it. So with this kind of pressure on the regulatory side, and also the WHO and now the dietary guidelines have actually lowered their recommendation down to 6% of daily caloric intake to be sugar. So this is front and center. This is the number one issue or nutritional issue for the public health community. So I think that'll be front and center for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So what about the future of junk food? So-called junk food. One at PHA, we always acknowledge, and those who read the report carefully will see, we say grocers, aren't being asked to and shouldn't be give up fun, delicious, indulgent foods, but to really help on the portion control side, that's our position. But I'm just wondering what you think more broadly about junk food. I mean, I just think even over the span of my lifetime, I'm so much more aware of food's ability just to build or diminish my health. And I think the whole of society is, but yet, there's still plenty of junk food out there. I'm just wondering what you see and how you think about that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I've always cringed at the term junk food, being a former marketer with General Mills and Coca-Cola. So moving past that to today's time, I think, first of all these foods don't behave the same.
Mhm.
All right. We did some segmentation work that was very clear that certain products like the soft drinks and packaged pastries and donuts and things like that definitely had higher purchase rates among those with obesity, whereas interestingly, chocolate was the same across the board. Everybody wants their chocolate. Don't bother me. Don't ever mess with that. So we have to be careful about lumping all these quote indulgent products into junk food category. But nevertheless, many of them are highly caloric and do contain a lot of sugar, in some cases, a lot of saturated fats. And we have to reduce those. And I think the best way to get at it is give the consumer what they want. They want their treats, they want their indulgences, but give it to them in more bite-sized pieces. And interestingly, what we've seen in our work is that, like in the confection arena, smaller sizes actually were growing faster than the larger sizes for what we call instant consumable products. And also bite-sized products are having a resurgence this year, and they're flourishing during the COVID. So it's a way for consumers to get their release, their joy, their emotional satisfaction, at the same time managing their intake, again, of calories. So I think that's for real. I think manufacturers and grocers would benefit from being more ardent in displaying these products and being more aggressive behind them. And I think, especially since checkout is under assault right now, I think that would be a great way to migrate the checkout lanes to include these kind of products, because that's, we can balance that with really healthy products, better for you snacks, et cetera, up there, and also smaller portions of those little indulgences.
Yeah, and I know some of the CPGs are working on making clear on packaging what a serving is. And I remember when Nestle first told me that they were marketing one of their frozen pizzas with the thing, don't eat the whole pie, eat 2 slices with a side salad. And, there is an opportunity, I think, for retailers and CPGs to work, hand in glove on portion control in a way that definitely continues the trend of the consumer seeing the retailer as the ally. Leslie, I want to come to you because there are several questions in the chat, around, these healthier foods being accessible for everyone. And one of the people asked, do those people on a really fixed and limited budget see the grocer as an ally? And, I'll have all of you thinking about one of the other questions surround SNAP benefits that as retail's moving to more prepared food, which I think is an opportunity to compete with fast casual, those foods aren't, able to be accessed, with a SNAP card. And so again, thinking about accessibility for all and just how all of you might be thinking about those issues. So maybe to start with Leslie, you, and then go to Gordon.
Okay. As I understand the question is, do individuals who purchase foods through the SNAP program, for example, do they view their retailers as their allies on their health and wellness journey? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Our research, I don't think, has delineated between SNAP purchasers and non-SNAP purchasers as we do our trends research. But I do believe that our research encompasses a broad swath of consumers. So I'm not aware that there's any difference necessarily between how SNAP customers view their retailers as compared to others. As we know, in the SNAP program, there are some restrictions on the types of products that can be purchased with SNAP dollars. But I'm not aware that there's any different perspective among SNAP customers when they think about whether their retailers are trying to help them or not.
Mhm. Gordon, what are your observations about, the people who are really struggling to access even enough food, and how do we make sure they're part of the conversation about better for you?
Oh, and I think, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I think this being involved in our communities is key to us. And we see spikes in our business when the SNAP benefits are released each month, and so we have a substantial increase in the number of people coming into our business, and we make sure that we have offers and promotions at that time that can help support them as they sort of spend wisely. I think one of the big changes that's really happened, I think, is the acceleration in acceptance of SNAP in e-commerce as well. And that was a trial that started, I think, beginning of last year with just a couple of retailers. But because of COVID, it's accelerated dramatically. And I think we're almost at the point now when we'll be accepting SNAP benefits. You've got to go through a process with the regulators. But most retailers are starting, will be able to offer that, which I think is really helpful and encouraging. But especially in this COVID time when people are frightened to come out. So it should be available to everyone. And hopefully with the foods and some of the products that we're talking about that aren't available in SNAP, again, we should be sort of pushing and lobbying to have those made available through SNAP. And, I'd say the COVID, if you like, has been something that really has highlighted the differences in communities, as Hank sort of put in his report. And I think we should be moving in that direction to make these things available to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy,
Yeah.
if I could just follow up on Gordon's comment, because I think it's an important one. This movement to e-commerce, which we're seeing, the growth has just been astronomical. We were already on a tremendous growth path in January of this year, and we're projecting that by 2025, we would be at X number of dollars in sales. Well, instead of waiting 5 years, within 5 or 6 months, we were already at those numbers. And to Gordon's point about the SNAP program being more available through e-commerce, we worked really closely with USDA to try to expand the pilot project in the 4 states that he mentioned. And I believe I'm correct now that we're up to 48 states that are allowing the e-commerce use of SNAP dollars throughout the country. So it happened quickly, and to Gordon's point, it's an important way for us to be able to ensure across the spectrum of customers that they have access to healthier food products.
Yeah, and maybe just one point I'd want to get in as someone who's worked on addressing nutrition for the lowest income for a long time is I do see new opportunity there. I mean, it's all about affordability. We all know it has traditionally been that the ultra processed, calorie dense but nutrient poor foods are the least expensive. And I think now that we understand so much more about health, I mean, there was a report just out this morning showing that people are living longer, but higher numbers are dying of diet-related disease, at the same time. So it becomes ever more important. And I think one of the challenges, and it's not just for retailers, it's for society as a whole, it's for civil society, all companies, government, consumers, is to really work on, price point and affordability, for better for you options. And we're really all over that because until those nuts are cracked, SNAP people who are on SNAP will have, just fewer great options to choose from. So that's a key issue. And, Leslie, you talked about the number of people now shopping online. So that pivots to a couple of the questions that are coming in regarding online shopping. People are really curious about the trends and I'll layer in my own curiosity. So I'll give you all a chance, all three, to respond to just what are some of the opportunities you see online. And then what about marketing better for you choices online? It strikes me that the digital shopping experience allows for all kinds of new marketing opportunities. And we all know the power and influence of marketing. So I'm really curious about everyone's thoughts there.
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think you're absolutely right that there are tremendous opportunities with this movement to online shopping because of the information that can be provided and the willingness, I think, that we see our customer base of moving to this new technology. It's interesting because what we've learned through our research with consumers is that they tend to have a very broad-based, sort of multifaceted view of what is healthy. And healthy, of course, incorporates their perceptions on nutrition and calorie count and those types of things. But it's also important, I think, for consumers that health be including of sustainably sourced products, economical products, and products that are safe and good for them to eat and serve their families. And what that means, I think, to us as retailers is that the consumer wants more information. And so what I think retailers are becoming, in addition to marketers of products and sellers of products, is providers of information to their customers. And so customers want to know today, where a product was grown, under what conditions, what was, what did the workforce that produced those products look like, and how were they treated in the process? So there's such a broad swath of understanding of what healthy means these days that I think for retailers, particularly now in the online space, to be able to share much more information with their customers about those products is really critical, and it's going to be important as we move forward and more customers want to have access to that kind of information.
Hey, how about if you build on that? The report talks about trends towards sustainably marketed products. One of the issues near and dear to my heart is that plant-based products are both good for your health. And when I say plant-based products, I'm thinking less, frankly, of almond milk and more of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes. But in any event, plants are among those. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes are good for the planet and good for health. But just what are you seeing about opportunities and sustainability, to Leslie's point?
Yeah, there's a good Accenture report that highlighted consumer trends going into this year and continuing into the year. And the top 2 or 3 arenas that consumers are highlighting are they not only want to eat healthier on an ongoing basis, about 54% of consumers said that, but also they're highly conscious of getting foods that, again, they understand where they come from at the source, that they are more sustainable, and also food waste was part of that. It's a broad definition of sustainability. So they're looking at how good these products really are, for the planet, for the environment overall. So the footprint, if you would, of a product is important. And interestingly, we're seeing 1 or 2 companies now come out with their carbon footprint on their labeling, and I would expect to see more and more of that over time. I want to go back to bridge the conversation you just had with Leslie about online and marketing these healthier types of products. I think one of the things that packaged goods companies might be lagging a little bit on is historically they spend behind each brand based on historical spending. And what's happening is as the market has shifted to healthier products or more sustainable products, et cetera, their spending has not shifted over to those products proportionately. In other words, they're overspending right now on a lot of the old traditional products that many of them aren't as healthy. So I think there's an imperative for companies, for their own good, again, to spend their dollars more wisely, more efficiently, and effectively to consider shifting those spending dollars, because online is important now, as Leslie mentioned. It's real, it's here to stay. We got to 2025 pretty quickly, and the marketers know that, and you don't do blunt instrument marketing any longer. So I think that's a big hole that needs to be filled.
Interesting, very interesting. Gordon, I want to get you in on this, both points. The online opportunity, but also the sustainability, and especially like where the rubber meets the road, because
Sure.
from my seat, you can always see, pie in the sky dream for solutions, like an icon that would mark good for your health and good for the planet. And then there's the real world where it's how much water, how much fuel to ship, how much, and it all gets very complicated. So how are you grappling with the consumer desire to know and the real world supply chain?
Just two things really. One, I think going into e-commerce, the big thing for, I think, retailers at the moment is this omni-channel experience that we're talking about. So, the customer wants to shop how they want, when they want, where they want. And therefore, how do we get our brick and mortar experience the same as the online experience? So when we're working with e-commerce, which really has accelerated, the customer feels that they are shopping with Stop and Shop. So how do we give that information and make this promotions activities that we're doing online and in store feel like it's a part of the Stop and Shop brand? And certainly, to Leslie's point, there's a great opportunity to educate people, to give information, recipes, anything that you want, anything you can imagine that is available, you can put on there if the customers want it. And how do we bring that to life? Example, our guiding stars, we can put that into our online system. And that's what we're doing. So this whole kind of end-to-end Stop and Shop experience, omni-channel experience, is going to be key to our future. And say the big retailers will actually sort of accelerate that activity as we get into this coming years. I think, my experience a couple of years back when I was with Giant Food with a company called How Good, and you've probably heard of them. They've got the biggest sustainability database in the world. And to your point about almond milk that you mentioned, that made me think of them, was actually we did a trial with them and launched How Good in our stores in Giant Food. And each product gets a good, better, best rating depending on its sustainability. And sustainability is guided by, one is how good it is for the planet, how they treat their workers, and the how healthy is the product. And when we were doing the trial, we walked around the store, the guy had set up one of our stores, and I was walking around and almond milk didn't have a rating. So I said, well, why does almond milk not have a rating? Because it's healthy. It was that 2 or 3 years ago, it was one of the big health kicks that everybody was on. And he said, well, look, almond milk, most almonds are grown in California. Almonds take a massive amount of water. Therefore, they're not a sustainable product. And so it's really fascinating when you get behind and start to understand that. And then I think, as you say, people are going to be interested in how workers are treated, how healthy is it, and how sustainable is it. And I didn't, sort of say to anyone listening, if they wanted to go into the How Good website and have a look. It's quite fascinating, the information they have there. And again, we're considering, do we use that to help educate our customers or help them educate themselves and make it accessible?
Okay, thanks. So I've got a couple questions that have come in from the audience. I'm gonna give them to you both at once to contemplate, and we'll start off with Hank and then roll around to Leslie and Gordon. So the first one is, can your panelists comment on the impact slotting fees and other CPG payments to stores have on in-store promotion of less healthy choices, and what can be done about that? And a separate but semi-related question is, what would a pilot look like for a retailer to decrease unhealthy food marketing on end caps, et cetera, via e-commerce, especially during the beginning of the month when most SNAP benefits are redeemed? So Hank, do you want to start off?
Sure, that's loaded questions for sure. Well, slotting fees obviously have to do with new products, getting new products on the shelf. And if you really look at the trend, there are more of the new products tend to be better for you as a percentage. At least they've gone up over the past few years. So I think that's, and I have to defer to Gordon on part of this answer, but clearly with slotting allowances and monies for displays and end caps and things like that, those are the products that get the attention. I think actually the slotting fee question plays out more on the display side because what you see is what you purchase. I mean, that's just the rule, marketing 101 and display 101. And I think there's a barrier historically about putting a lot of the healthy products together with the old standby icon traditional, let's call them indulgent products. And I think we have to move away from that mindset. It's not either or, all right? If anything, just like we're finding with, let's say, Beyond Meat, putting that in the meat case, all right? Because that helps the consumer think about that alternative meat product as for the same occasion as meat consumption. And that helps raise the awareness of those products. So I think it's not just the slotting allowance, but how it's earmarked.
Mhm.
So that would be point number one. Point number two, pilots, I think, are a wonderful way to get at all these issues, because they're low risk. And you can pilot across many formats, not only in store, even online. We were talking about e-commerce before. Some of the packaged goods companies have been using their online sites to test out new, better for you products and see how they go without the risk of spending the slotting allowances and disrupting the retail environment for themselves. So again, I think one thing the CPG companies are really good at is they understand their consumers and they see where the market's going. Again, they don't all behave the same, but the wiser ones are seeing that the movement is towards better for you, healthier, more sustainable products. In fact, I didn't mention this before, while sustainably marketed products only are 16% of the items, they accounted over the last 5 years for about 55% of the growth. So that's why you should be jumping on this. So again, hopefully that's a roundabout way to get at those questions.
Gordon, are you jumping on this? Hank says you should be.
No, absolutely. No, I think, and we were the very first company, if you speak to Seth, who sort of developed the Beyond Meat. We were the first organization to put Beyond Meat in the same case as in the meat case. Because to your point, it used to sit in the plant-based area that nobody ever visited, and that just, again, made it easier for people to buy. And I think those products are becoming, like we said at the start, are becoming mainstream, and we have to help people find them. I think the issue on slotting fees is a one-off when people list new products with us. So it's more about the promotional activity and the promotional dollars that go into these activities on month to month and week to week in retailers. And certainly, again, Hank mentioned the fact that, one is, people are becoming more healthy, or CPGs, with the work that PHA have done in recent years to help them formulate and reformulate their products, are actually providing healthier products. And really, at the start of when people get their SNAP benefits, you find that the sequence is normally they stock up on the foods that they're going to have for the month. So they want some of the meats and the chicken and the other things that they'll buy. It's towards the end of the SNAP period that people start to run low on money, and that's when they then revert to this sort of cheaper, less healthy product. So I think there's a part of really understanding the cycle that people go through in their month as they sort of get their SNAP benefits, as they spend those, they get to the tough time at the end of the month, and how can we help them by promoting sort of products that are healthier. And I think the question about the unhealthy promotions is a choice for us to make. I think that I don't think that I know we don't go out and say, hey, let's promote these unhealthy products because people are going to take advantage of people. We actually, are looking at how do we give people the best products and choice, because Stop and Shop is for everyone. We invite all customers into our store, and therefore it's how do we believe people have a choice, but then how can we help them make healthier choices? And certainly, by not offering unhealthy products at a crazy price is one way that we can move people away from some of these products. And that's what I was alluding to when I mentioned earlier about the discontinuing products, and also the different promotion and analytics you can use to help move people to healthier choices. But that's something I think is still at a very early stage, and something that we have to do more work on.
Thanks, Gordon. Leslie, you can come in on that, but there's actually a couple of questions specifically for you. So I'm going to bundle those in as well. One is, does FMI have any data on the role of supermarket RDs and their impact on nutrition education, driving healthier choices, et cetera? And the other is, it seems like food prices are going up generally. Is this true? And do you expect it to continue in the near future?
On the role of RDs, we do a health survey every other year. So every 2 years, we do a health survey. And what we find in our data is that not only is the role of RDs increasing in conjunction with the work they do with the customer base, but the number of RDs that are actually being hired by companies is on the increase as well. So I think the role that the registered dietitian is playing in the retail environment is growing quickly. And we certainly have not seen, at least so far, we have not seen any decline in that as a result of COVID. On the issue of food prices, I think what we see is changing all over the place. Some and to vary, excuse me, to varying degrees, depending on the products. How food prices are developed and established is a pretty complicated process. And I think as we look at what's been going on during the COVID environment, not only do we see that there is increasing demand for products that are available at retail, but what goes into getting those products to the supermarket shelf is also has changed dramatically. So it's much more expensive now to be able to get products with the transportation costs, increased production costs, the kinds of costs that are going into sanitation and keeping all these facilities and the transportation vehicles clean, et cetera, et cetera. So the cost structure has changed dramatically. I think we have seen some increase in some pricing. What that will mean long term, I can't say. But I do think we have seen some increases, and I think only time will tell how that's going to play out. But I think as we look at it, we have to be cognizant of what goes into getting those products to the shelf and the kinds of costs that have been associated with the new procedures that have had to be put in place as a result of a pandemic.
Interesting. Well, sadly, there are more questions I'm not going to be able to get to from the audience, but I I do want to give you, with our last minute each, like literally 30 seconds on, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for retail going forward? And start with you, Hank.
Well, I think retailers will see the quickest growth by number one, doing what we talked about before, where you're displaying and promoting products that are healthier, more sustainable, et cetera, with the old standards in the category, because that helps the consumer focus in, just like the example that Gordon highlighted. And the other thought I had is one that's structural. Oftentimes, different departments in the store, they're kind of siloed at times. And I think cross-promoting can really be a big benefit to these products that are healthier, again, more sustainable, again, where they get to piggyback the old standards that are high volume items that are profitable for the store, and they can come along more quickly that way.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Hank. Gordon?
I think this whole omni-channel and digital experience and the information that we can pass on to our customers is going to be massive for us in the coming years. And that's just an opportunity that we're really sort of looking at, and how do we move forward there. And there was one question about someone wanting to contact with Stop and Shop for sugar-free products. and it's just gordon.reed@stopandshop.com, and we'll link you up with the right people.
And Leslie?
Well, I think there are lots of opportunities. Of course, the ones that Hank and Gordon have already referenced. One of the things from where I sit as the leader of a trade association in this space, I think the development of best practices, the way companies are being successful in this space is important to be documented and shared. The competition among retailers in this market is significant, but I think they can all learn from each other's experiences and pick and choose the things that they think will work best in the communities they serve. So one of the things that I hope we will be able to do at FMI, perhaps in conjunction with PHA, is begin to document some of these best practices and make them available to the broader industry.
Yeah, well, we welcome that opportunity. Well, the time has flown. I want to say what a pleasure to be with such three smart people and in a position of influence, and retail in general is in a position of influence. If you want to change the world, you look at who the influencers are, and retail has real, is a trusted ally of the consumer. So I'm excited to see what will happen over the next year, over the next 18 months. I really appreciate your being here today. And this will, of course, being an ongoing conversation among us, among the consumers. And I hope anyone listening will feel free to reach out to PHA if you have ideas and thoughts about how we advance the ball in the important mission to transform the food landscape in pursuit of health equity. Thank you and have a great day.
Have a good
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.